pleasant day. May our day be filled with light, love, and happiness. Before anything else, I just want to share to you guys this quotation. Train your mind to see something good in every situation. So, we need to train our mind to face and see the goodness in every situation in our life. Do not let small obstacles make you feel guilty or frustrated that you give up on your attempts to improve. Look at a conflict as a test to help you to grow and learn rather than an end itself, which is very common characteristic of us humans. If we train our minds to handle our reaction and emotions, we will live in a much and moderate, a kinder society. For today's lesson, I will be discussing about the types of assessment. But before that, let us first define what is a assessment. Assessment, it is a process that is used to keep track of learners' progress in relation to learning standard and in the development of 21st century skills, and to promote self-reflection and personal accountability among students about their own learning. There are lots of types of assessment to assess the progress of the learners, but in this discussion I will be only discussing about the three types of assessment, and these are the observational checklists, anecdotal records, and portfolio assessment. Let us first define what is a observation checklist. A checklist is a simple instrument consisting list of expected items, performance, or attributes, which are checked by evaluator for their presence or absence. So, an observation checklist is a set of questions that assist an observer to evaluate the performance and behavior of an individual's skills. Also, a teacher in a classroom observation checklist helps an observer to identify skill gaps and also to improve teaching strategies, classroom settings, and student learning development. And these are the characteristics of a checklist. First is observe one respondent at one time. Observation checks allow teachers to examine and adjust their teaching practices to cater to the learning needs of their students, to determine ways to correct disruptive behavior. So in short, one person at a time. So one person or one learner for one checklist. One checklist for one learner. Next one is clearly specify the characteristic of behavior to be observed. So halimbawa po, no, yung checklist mo is yes or no, answerable by yes or no. Halimbawa, nakakakyat ba ang isang bata sa maakyatang bagay? Yes or no. Nakakapaglakad ba ng paurong? Yes or no. Nakakapagbuwit ba siya o hindi? Yes or no. And so on and so forth. So it should be clear of what you are observing on a specific pupils. Next one. The observer should be trained how to observe. Through observing a teacher's practice, evaluators are able to see instruction in context and real time. For this reason, observation of teacher practice are critically important to ensure quality instruction. And the last one is used only when interested in calculating a particular characteristic. So you need to know what you are checking on the checklist. It should be clear of what you are observing or the results that you may see on the learners that you are observing with. And here is the example of a checklist. As you can see, you can see a scale, notes, the statement. So by the way, if you have a question regarding about observational checklist or observation checklist, you can comment on our section box. Next one is anecdotal records. An anecdotal record is a detailed descriptive narrative recorded after a specific behavior or interaction occurs. So, anecdotal records, it is a written records or note of what a child says or does within the context of classroom activities and routines. Also, the use of anecdotal records is one way to collect information about children's development and learning. There's also these records or notes are one way to document your observation. And here are the purpose of anecdotal records. First is to furnish evidence needed for a good communicative record. So by collecting anecdotal records on a regular basis, you are creating a record of a child's learning and progress over the time. Second one is to substitute for vague generalization about students. So it can be maintained in the areas of behavior that cannot be evaluated. Third one, to understand individual basic personality pattern. In here, it provides an opportunity for a healthy pupil and teacher relationship. And the last one is to understand in a realistic manner. So the teacher is able to understand his or her pupil in a realistic manner. So teachers can use clipboards, notepads, sticky notes, mailing labels, and a lot more. Regardless, the notes need to include some basic information, and these are the child's name, date, setting, time, a clear description of the observation, and the name of the observer. And here is the example of anecdotal records. As you can see the child's name, date, time, setting, a clear description of the observation, and the name of the observer. And here's also another example of writing an anecdotal records. The date and the comment of a specific child that you are observing with. Again, by collecting anecdotal records on a regular basis, you are creating a record of child's learning and progress over the time. And the last one that we will be talking to this presentation is the portfolio assessment. So what is a portfolio assessment? A portfolio is a purposeful collection of the students' work that presents the students' efforts, progress, or success in a given content area over a period of time. Portfolios are a great way to provide the students with a way to directly influence and can be involved in their assessment. Also, a portfolio assessment, it is an effective method for involving students in monitoring their own learning. However, portfolios can also increase the communication between teachers, students, and parents. In a child-involved parent, teachers can interview the child to present or to ask them to present their portfolio to his or her parent. Here, the parent can get a glimpse into their child's learning and development and can contribute to their child's learning experience. In fact, a good design portfolio has 5 key elements that make it stand out. First is the context, scope, rationale, visual, and impact. And for the lastly is portfolio assessment enables students to reflect their real performance, to show their weak and strong domain, to observe the students' progress during the learning process, and encourage students to take responsibilities for their own learning. Now, we've learned a great deal about the assessment, and we've learned also the types of assessment, and these are the anecdotal records, observation checklist, and the portfolio assessment. I hope that you have learned something from me. Again, I am Jonathan Deirit. Thank you so much for watching.